welcome to Skein Crochet. Today I'm going to show you how to make the Simple Shells cowl. For the actual cowl I used Barocco folio yarn and a size G crochet hook, but for this tutorial I'm just going to use an H hook and the same basic yarn. This is a Caron Simply Soft, just a worsted weight yarn. Okay, so to start, for this pattern, for the actual cowl, I did 132 stitches, but you can do any combination of multiples of 6 stitches. So each 6 stitches is going to be one shell. So however many shells you want it to be, you need to have 6 stitches. So for the one that I made, it is pretty small. I wouldn't go smaller than 132 stitches if you're using that yarn and hook. But for this sample, I'm going to make it smaller just so I can actually get through. 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a trick I learned from TL Yarn Crafts. If you take this loop off your hook and go through the first stitch, then it's a lot easier to not twist your chain when you join it. So yeah, I did that. So I have 6, and I'm going to keep chaining 7, 8, just kidding, try again. Okay, so I just chained 24, so I'm doing a very small sample just to show you how the pattern works. I'm doing it to make that ring. Now, I'm going to chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. I'm going to do 2 double crochet in the same stitch. Skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and slip stitch in the next stitch. Now I'm going to skip 2 more stitches and double crochet 5 times in the next stitch. So if you remember from the shells video where I talked about shells in general, a shell is just a bunch of stitches worked into one stitch. So these 5 stitches is a shell. I'm going to skip 2 and slip stitch in the next one. I'm doing these slip stitches to anchor them down so that they look more rounded. Now I'm going to skip 2 stitches, and 5 double crochet in that stitch, that 3rd stitch. I'll skip 2 more, slip stitch in the next stitch, skip 2 more, 5 double crochet. So this is the repeat that you do all the way across. Slip stitch, skip 2, 5 double crochet, skip 2, slip stitch. Oops, that was supposed to be in the same stitch as the last one. Here, I started talking to you and I got all distracted. So that's 5 double crochet, then I'll skip 2, slip stitch, I'll skip 2, except it looks like maybe I counted wrong, and then I'm going to do 2 double crochet in my start. And then I will join to the top of my starting chain. So I make the join in the middle of the shell because I feel like it hides the join a little bit better. Okay, so this is my first row after the chain row. So I've got these 4 shells, and I only have 4 because I only did 24 stitches in my chain. If you started with a bigger chain, you would have more. So if I did my chain of 132, then I would have 22 shells in this first row. Okay, so now for the second row, I'm going to do a chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to slip stitch to the middle stitch of this shell. So 1, 2, 3, that's my middle. I'm going to chain 5. And I'm just going to skip over that. I don't care about that at all. I'm going to chain or slip stitch to my middle 1, 2, 3, middle shell, middle of that shell, and chain 5. Middle of the next shell, chain 5. Now I'm going to slip stitch back to that first starting place. So now on my second row, I've got my row of shells, and now I've got this row of, it's like a chain that goes all the way around. It's joined to the middle of each shell cluster. And so now it's time for my next row. And so this is where the pattern starts to repeat. It's actually quite a simple 2-row repeat for this pattern. So I'm going to chain 3. Again, that counts like my double crochet. I'm going to do 2 more double crochet in the same place. I'm going to slip stitch over this chain. I'm not actually working into a specific one of the chains, I'm just slip stitching over the whole bar. And now I'm going to do 5 double crochet in that same middle stitch of my shell. It's so weird to be using thicker yarn after using that tiny folio. Then I'll slip stitch over the chain and 5 double crochet in the middle stitch of the shell. If you do choose to use the same yarn that I used, that Barocco folio yarn, my advice would be to try it out first on a different yarn just to make sure you have the pattern down, because when I tried to take out some stitches in that yarn, I kept breaking the yarn because it really likes to snag together, which also means that it would probably felt really well. I don't want it to felt though. Okay, so that is my row of shells. And you see that chain kind of gets buried a little bit. It doesn't get buried as much in that other yarn, but it's what anchors my shells down so that they come down. Otherwise they would stay up a little higher. So that chain that goes across is rather important. Okay, I'll do 1 more row, but from here on out it's just repeating that. 1 row is chains, the next row is shells. Back and forth and back and forth. So this row is going to be chains. I'm going to chain 5. And join to the top of the next shell and chain 5, join to the top of the next shell, if you get into doing more crochet lace, you'll find that they use chains a lot just to anchor other stitches. Just to give them something to work around. So there's a lot of kind of hidden chains in crochet lace. Why is it so tight? Okay, so I'm going to stop here, but that hopefully gives you enough to be able to do this pattern. This is the Shells Cowl. It has 2-row repeat, and when you finish it, I would stop on a shells row so that you have shells on top. I'm gonna go grab really quick my actual shells cowl. I showed a picture of it earlier, but right now it's actually blocking, so I'll be right back. Okay, so this is my actual cowl. It's wet right now because, like I said, I was blocking it because it's wool and wool blocks nicely. Okay, so this is the Barocco folio yarn. It's a much thinner yarn, and you can see that it makes this delicate shells pattern. You still don't really see the chains. The chains get buried, but the shells themselves look very nice. So with the Barocco folio, I used the entire ball, except for what I threw away when I broke it. And this is kind of just the right size to go around my head. So I would not go smaller than 132 stitches if you're using this yarn and a G hook. So let me give you some measurements here. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 9 rows of shells in 4 inches with this yarn. And about 4.5, oh, you can't even see the, about 4.5, 1, 2, 3, 4.5 shells in 4 inches going across. So just to give you an idea, if you want to change how large your cowl is, you might need to get more yarn if you want a bigger one. Or you could make this into a scarf if you just made it kind of skinnier and longer. It would be really pretty. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was useful for you and that you feel confident now that you can make this fun but simple shells pattern. It's really pretty. Happy crocheting! Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get all the latest videos, free patterns, and